Have you ever wondered why so many men who try so hard to please a woman end up ignored? Why is it that the guy who texts her every day, who is always available, who does everything to make her feel good, is the same guy who ends up hearing, "You're amazing, but I don't think I'm ready"? There is a subtle and brutal pattern that few have the courage to look at head-on. The man who gives too much of himself loses his value, and what maintains its firmness becomes unforgettable. We live in a time when men have been trained to confuse affection with submission, to believe that constant presence is proof of love, that saying yes to everything is a demonstration of maturity. But Machiavelli already said, men must either be conquered or destroyed, for if they are only wounded, they can take revenge. And in this modern context, to be hurt is to be ignored, erased, discarded, after having given everything without being asked. The good man is not rejected for what he does. He is despised for everything he accepts to be. And here is the root of the problem. He believes that if he is understanding, patient, and affectionate, the woman will see how much he is worth. But seduction is not a logical equation. It is a game of perception. And when you give too much without being challenged, you change the game. You move from the position of mystery to the role of comfort, and desire does not dwell in comfort. Desire is born in contrast. Have you ever noticed how men who don't chase after you, who have a busy life, who don't respond immediately, end up being the ones who stay on their minds? They're not trying to prove anything. They're not seeking approval. They simply live their own narrative, and that's magnetic. The man who does not bow imposes presence, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. He knows what he wants, he knows who he is, and he's not willing to trade his essence for temporary affection. This is the truth that no one told you. A woman may even say that she wants a sweet, sensitive, always present man, but she falls in love with what she cannot control. She wants a man who challenges her emotionally, who makes her think, who stands his ground even when she tries to test him. And yes, she will test you. She will make you jealous. She will disappear to see your reaction. She will say things just to measure your emotional stability, not out of malice, but because the feminine unconscious needs to know, can this man handle my chaos, or will he crumble like all the others? And when you react, chase after her, justify yourself, try to win her back, she doesn't feel safe. She feels controlled. And where there is control, there is no admiration. Machiavelli taught something that few understood. You don't govern with affection. You govern with presence and strategy. And this also applies to the dynamics between men and women. So understand, it's not about being cold. It's about being lucid. You don't have to stop loving, stopping, caring, stopping feeling. But you need to learn never put your value in the hands of someone who is still trying to understand themselves. Anyone who needs to constantly prove that they are worthy of love has already lost the game before it even begins. Stop seeking approval where you should be asserting your presence. Stop running after someone who only moves when they realize you've stopped. True power does not beg, does not justify, does not bow. He just imposes himself, silently. And that's why today you're going to learn 5 Machiavellian rules that will take you out of the position of predictable, nice, and disposable man, and put you in the place that few women forget, that of the man that no one can decipher, control, or replace. If you follow through to the end, you won't just understand the game. You will become the player who dictates his pace. Because, not final, the man who walks with his truth does not need to shout to be noticed. He becomes impossible to ignore. Now that you understand why the nice guy is invisible, it's time to cross the bridge that separates the ordinary from the unforgettable. It's not enough to be nice, loyal, or present. Those are prerequisites for everyone. What separates the man who stays in a woman's mind from the one who is forgotten the next day is simple. He understands the game. He knows the hidden rules that govern attraction, perception, and respect, and he applies them with a charming coolness. The first rule is simple. Never over-explain yourself. The man who constantly needs to justify himself is actually revealing his insecurity. With each attempt to explain himself, he is saying without realizing it, I need you to accept my version because I am not even sure of it. Machiavelli knew this, Power lies in conviction, not in justification. When you act firmly, even in silence, you create presence. And presence, my friend, is worth more than 1,000 words trying to convince someone of your worth. The man who talks too much loses his mystery, and he who loses his mystery loses respect. The second rule is equally brutal: seduce through contrast, not through surrender. Most men believe that giving themselves completely is the best way to win someone over. But anything that is given easily is quickly devalued. A woman may even smile at the excess of attention, but deep down she feels, this man is already mine, and I didn't even have to do anything. And what comes easily goes away without pain. Being kind is basic, but being enigmatic, being a balance of attention and absence, of sweetness and firmness, of presence and silence, she won't find that anywhere, and that's what imprints your image in her mind. The third rule is one of the most neglected: never react to emotional tests. And believe me, they will come. She will provoke jealousy. She will take a long time to respond. She will play with your sense of stability. Not because she is cruel, but because she needs to understand if you are strong or just another person who buckles under pressure. And if you react, if you lose control, if you seek validation, you will fall into her game. The man who remains centered, who observes instead of explaining himself, who decides whether or not to continue without getting shaken, this man conveys something rare: dominance. And dominance is more attractive than beauty, more impactful than pretty words. He is the gravitational center of the relationship. Everything orbits around him. The fourth rule is about time. And here's a secret: desire needs space to grow. A man who is always available conveys one thing: he has nothing else going on besides her. And that doesn't attract, it repels, because subconsciously she feels, if he's always here, then he doesn't have a greater mission, he doesn't have a world of his own, he doesn't have priorities other than me. And that, instead of enchanting, suffocates, disappearing intelligently, not responding immediately, disappearing for a while. In all of this communicates value, because your absence sends the message, my life doesn't revolve around you, but you're still part of it. And this duality is irresistible. Whoever masters time masters desire. Finally, the fifth rule is the most powerful: offer her what she doesn't expect. Emotional direction. Most men are trying to fit in, trying to please, trying to understand what she wants so they can adapt to it. But a man who makes a mark doesn't ask where to go. He already knows. He lives with clarity, with purpose, with focus. And that vision guides. And a woman, even the most independent, wants something that few can offer: a man with direction. Not someone who pushes her, but someone who inspires her to follow. A man who knows where he's going, who sets his own pace, who doesn't ask for permission to be himself. That man doesn't need to chase anyone, because whoever finds him feels like they've found something rare, not just a partner, but a role model. These 5 rules are the silent code of respect. They don't shout, they don't seduce by force, they don't beg for space. They simply show, with calculated actions, that there is a clear difference between the man who seeks to be accepted and the man who demands to be remembered. And when you start applying them, you change everything. Because true dominance is not in conquering someone, it is in becoming someone who is never forgotten. You can follow all the rules, you can master silence, know how to disappear, apply mystery, control the narrative, but if you don't understand this part, you will continue to be a controllable version of yourself. The game is not just about being remembered, it's about being needed. And here's the brutal difference between these two states. The desired man is a momentary pleasure. The needed man is an emotional reference. Most men are obsessed with desire. They want to be desired, sought after, admired. And so they shape their behavior, adjust their tone of voice, copy ready-made phrases, and follow rules, hoping that in the end someone will see them as special. But anything that is created based on external validation is fragile, and what is fragile breaks at the first test. Desire is fickle. Today it seeks you, tomorrow it ignores you. It feeds on novelty, mystery, absence, but respect, that is rarer, because it is born from something deeper. The feeling that you are a solid structure in the midst of chaos. It doesn't matter if she's angry, confused, distant. Your posture remains intact. You don't react, you observe. You decide whether to continue, and you don't beg her to stay. The fatal mistake modern men make is to trade their identity in order to not be alone. They feel they have to compromise more, tolerate everything, swallow their discomfort, silence their indignation, all to keep someone by their side. And deep down, they call it love. But it's not love. It's a contract of emotional submission signed in fear. And no man who trades his truth for companionship comes away unscathed. Have you ever seen a lion try to convince his prey to like him? Have you ever seen a king go out into the streets asking for recognition of his throne? No, because true power does not ask. It manifests itself. In the same way, the man who knows himself, who knows his limits, his values, his purpose, does not enter games that require him to deform himself to be accepted. He observes, and when he realizes that he is being pushed into a role that does not belong to him, he withdraws. Not with anger, with sovereignty. And here's the gist: women feel this. They test. They push the envelope. They say things to see if you'll chase them, if you'll lose control, if you'll forget who you are to try to win them back. And when you give in, they don't feel sorry, they feel contempt. Because even if unconsciously, what most activates respect and desire in a woman is realizing that you has an unshakable emotional center. She may not say it, but when she meets a man who doesn't give in, who looks her in the eye and says, "This isn't for me," who remains silent in the face of manipulation, who walks away with dignity, she feels something she can't explain. It's fear, it's admiration, it's desire mixed with insecurity. It's the certainty that there's a man out there who doesn't need her, but who could choose to be with her. And that, to the female mind, it's the kind of power that makes a difference, because it is rare, almost extinct. How many times have you tried to prove your worth to someone who didn't even deserve your presence? How many times have you belittled yourself just to avoid an uncomfortable silence? How many times have you pretended not to care about disrespect just to keep the peace? And how many of those times have you left feeling like less of a man? The answer is there. The mistake is not being rejected. The mistake is being accepted for a weak, distorted, nullified version of yourself. The mistake is to decorate the cell with flowers and call it a relationship. It's putting on armor that hurts every day and pretending everything is okay. It is believing that the silence that corrodes you is less painful than the silence of loneliness. But here's the truth no one told you. The solitude of the man who remains whole is infinitely more worthy than the companionship gained through his self-effacement. Explaining your dignity to someone who doesn't recognize it is like trying to teach piano to the deaf. A waste of time, energy, and soul. Do you want to be remembered? Then don't be just another one. Don't be predictable. Don't be moldable. Be the contrast. Be the breaking point in the pattern she knows. When everyone is running behind, be the one who walks in the opposite direction. Calmly, clearly, with conviction. When everyone is trying to please, be the one who commands respect with silence. When everyone else is offering immediate presence, be the one offering selective, and therefore valuable, presence. And here is the final lesson of this point. The man who nullifies himself out of fear of loneliness will never be remembered. He will be replaced. But the man who asserts himself with dignity, who walks away at the first sign of disrespect, who remains true to his truth, that man is never forgotten. She may even try to replace you. She may even find someone more handsome, kinder, more present. But she will go to sleep, remembering the day she tried to manipulate you, and you didn't react. The day she disappeared, and you didn't chase her. The day she tested your limits, and you left her talking to herself. And this will engrave your image in a place where few enter, in her emotional memory. Because the necessary man is not the most present. He is the clearest. It's not the most romantic. It's the most firm. It's not what you love most. It's what does not negotiate its value. Even when loving, we've reached the end. And if you've come this far, it's not because you're just curious. It's because something inside you recognized the truth hidden behind each word. Because maybe, like many others, you were once the man who bent over backwards to be accepted, who tried to please, who chased, who kept quiet to keep someone close, and in the end was ignored as if nothing had made a difference. But this man can no longer exist, because the price of being forgotten, of being discarded, of being just another one, is too high. And you felt it, in your skin, in your soul, in your pride. So it's time to understand once and for all, the man who bends over backwards to maintain a feminine presence moves away from his own masculine essence. And when a man disconnects from his truth, he becomes a ghost of himself, present in body but absent in identity. Being unforgettable is not about being the most beautiful, the richest, the most present. It's about being the most authentic, the most solid, the most aligned with one's own axis. It's about walking silently with a posture that screams dignity. It's about being the kind of man who, even in silence, teaches. Machiavelli never spoke of love in the romantic sense. What he taught was deeper, more real, more necessary, lucidity. He spoke of how power lies not in who surrenders first, but in who maintains control of their own narrative, how respect is worth more than any passing emotion. And that's exactly what applies to the art of becoming unforgettable. You can love, you can connect, you can open up, but never, never must do so at the expense of its clarity. If you're going to lose someone, let it be for being whole. Because the man who walks with his truth is never alone. He is accompanied by something that few know, respect for his own destiny. This is the kind of man who doesn't beg. He chooses, he observes, he withdraws when necessary. And when you stay, it's because you want to, not because you have to. He doesn't let himself be carried away by emotional pressures or by neediness. He doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't respond to tests with desperation. He doesn't sacrifice his dignity for validation. He is the opposite of the predictable, domesticated, and forgettable man. He is the enigma that continues to haunt her mind even after the silence. He is the pattern that breaks the pattern. He is the reflection of what she always wanted, but never had the courage to admit. This man understands that respect comes before love, because love that is born from a lack of respect is fragile, manipulable, unsustainable, but the love that is born from true respect, that lasts, even when the presence is gone. And because of that, he is not afraid of losing. Because what he has to offer is too rare to be negotiated with those who still live on the surface. He knows that his absence is didactic, and that your silence, when it comes from firmness, educates more than any explanation. He walks alone if necessary, but never walk with someone who tries to prune you to fit into small expectations. And when he loves, he doesn't suffocate. He doesn't control. It offers something that few have: direction, clarity, vision. He is a beacon, and lighthouses don't beg for boats to come. They just shine, and whoever is in the dark sea and will know where to look. That is true power. This is true mastery. That's the real man. And if you now feel ready to take on this role, not out of pride but out of alignment, then understand, from this moment on, you have a mission. You're not here to please anymore. It's here to make an impact, to break cycles, to become the silent reference that changes the environment just by being present. To be the man a woman looks at and thinks, this one isn't like the others, and I'll never forget him. If this message touched you, share it with those who need to hear it. Let's free a generation of men who no longer want to be accepted with a mask, but respected with truth. Because in the end, the true king does not need everyone to love him. He just needs to be respected by those who really matter.